Hello FlossTube, hello Kitchen Stitchers. This is Arlene and Chef Dave. We're joining you from our kitchen and happy to be with you. Happy spring, it's April. We are actually closing in. We've got about a week and a half to Easter. So we have some Easter stuff to talk about. Speaking of Easter, here's my Easter tall guys. I do have to clarify one thing. People are asking me if I am the designer of tall guys, and I would love to say yes, but I am not. That is Ruth Sparrow. The only thing I did was take part of their design and turn it into something totally different with St. Patrick's Day. So I created the tall guys for St. Patrick's, but tall guys is theirs, and they don't have a St. Patrick's one, which is why I did it. So. But Ruth, I spoke to Ruth because people were saying they couldn't find the tall guys. They want to order tall guys. You can find her, oh gosh, what's the name of her store? Oh, I'll think about it. But you can find her online.
Ruth Sparrow's Tall Guys.
Yes, just do a search for Ruth Sparrow and tall guys. And she says she would be delighted to send any of the tall guys out to you all for... or to your local LNS. I don't know if she would do that directly, but anyway, she still has them, so they're still available, and there's a bunch of them. I haven't done all of them, though I've done most all of them. So I'm going to let Chef Dave take over the beginning section of this and talk a little bit about whatever he wants to share for Easter.
Yeah. Okay, well, yeah, I thought since Easter was coming up, a lot of people are going to be doing hard-boiled eggs for their kids to find, or just to decorate, or whatever you do with hard-boiled eggs at Easter time. So I think a lot of people tend, when they boil their eggs, they will overcook them. They'll put them in the water and they'll boil them and boil them and boil them and boil them, and half an hour later they think, oh yeah, they're probably done. And then when they go to crack them open to actually eat them, the yolks are very very hard and dry, and when they overcook, it also brings out the sulfur that's actually in the yolk, and it turns
I don't like eggs.
The outside of the yolk green.
My mom used to do that. She's the reason I don't like eggs. I love my mom, I hate eggs, and I have never been able to make a good boiled egg, so he's the man.
I love hard-boiled eggs, so I make them quite often.
He eats them with popcorn.
Yeah, popcorn and hard-boiled eggs, who knew? But anyway, yeah, so when you're cooking your eggs, you put your eggs however many you want in a pan, and it needs to be like twice as tall as however many eggs you're going to do. And you put water, cold water in it, and just cover your eggs with water, and then put them on the stove, put them on high heat, and bring the water to a boil. And I mean a hard boil. Hard-boiled eggs, hard boil.
So it's a rolling boil?
Good rolling boil. Not a simmer, but a really good rolling boil. And then when it goes into a rolling boil, turn the fire off, take the egg pan off the hot burner, and cover the pan. I take a tea kettle and cover the pan with that. It's just anything.
Or a lid.
If you have your lid out, yeah. Finding lids is usually a challenge in itself. So, yeah, and you want to time that for about 13 minutes. You can go into 14, but you don't want to go really any longer than that, because then they will start to overcook, because they'll keep cooking in the hot water. So that being said, after the 13 or 14 minutes is up, you want to get them out of the hot water, and you want to get them in an ice water bath. That will stop the cooking process.
So does that mean you have a bowl filled with ice water ready to go? Ice is in there with the water, and so you just put them in there with the ice water?
That's the easiest way. And don't try to pick up the eggs with your fingers, because they're going to be really, really hot.
So use a spoon.
Use a spoon, use a pair of tongs. I have tongs all over the kitchen, so yeah, use a pair of tongs if you can. And be careful not to drop them into the ice, because it'll crack your shell, and then it'll mess up however you want to decorate it. Now you've got hard-boiled eggs, so you're just going to eat hard-boiled eggs. okay if you want to. If you like deviled eggs, I love deviled eggs. You're gonna shell your eggs, cut your eggs in half, take the yolks out, put them in a bowl, and you're gonna smash them all up. Most people will just put a little mayonnaise, maybe a touch of mustard, and some salt, and mix it up into a creamy paste. Really, you may want to do a little bit more than that. You can add a little bit of sugar to taste. You can also add a little bit of hot sauce, and I'm not talking about turning your eggs red with hot sauce. I mean just a very little bit, just to add a little bit of acid to the taste.
Like a drop or two?
Couple of drops, yeah. You don't really want to taste the hot sauce. It just really.
What hot sauce do you use?
I use Frank's wing sauce actually, because it's pretty much all I have right now. So yeah, and get that into a nice creamy mixture, and then I'll take it and stuff it into a plastic baggy, and then use that kind of like a
Pastry bag?
pastry bag. Yeah, I don't know. Baking stuff. And cut a little bit of the corner off, and then you got all your eggs lined up, and it's really easy to squeeze the stuff into the eggs and make it look pretty. So.
But you like your egg salad.
Yeah, and that's.
None of this I like. None of this. Not even with sugar in it. You could put chocolate in it and I would still not like it.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't eat it with chocolate in it either. But yeah, egg salad is basically the same. It's the same idea. Don't try to take your egg white halves and throw them into a bowl and mash them up. That's going to be a lot of work that you really don't want to do. We have it's an egg slicer. It's a little plastic thing that has wires stretched back and forth.
I bought it from Pampered Chef actually to cut strawberries.
And it works very well for both.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll take the egg and I'll lay it into the egg slicer, slice it, and pick it up off the slicer and open it back up and put the egg back in, turning it 90 degrees and then slicing it again. So it dices it into nice little pieces. And then flavor it however you want. And that reminds me of something else. Somebody was asking about recipes. I really don't get caught up in recipes too much. You need recipes in baking, because baking is basically chemistry, and if you throw off the chemistry, you've blown whatever you're trying to make. But cooking, you wanna well, the chefs call it build your flavor profile, and what that is just building one flavor on top of another on top of another, and that means you add things into what you're going to eat. And I like to make sure that whatever I'm adding in tastes good just by itself. Like if I'm gonna make
like not eggs.
Like not eggs. If you're gonna add something that you want to taste good, like bacon. I mean, everybody loves bacon. Butter tastes good. Anything that, if it tastes good by itself and it's not too weird of a combination, you probably wouldn't put too much butter into like spaghetti sauce.
So it tastes good to you. So there might be a spice that tastes really off to me. Like I don't like curry,
right.
But someone likes the taste of curry, and so they would include that in. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it's, well, if you're the only one that's going to eat it, then
who cares?
Just like I say, it's like wine. You only get stuff that you like. Why buy stuff that tastes bad?
So there were a couple questions from the last time around. Sandra Stitches asked, when you have a knife block, do you put blade up or blade down? And his technical answer was neither, because ours goes horizontally, so he doesn't put them in up or down. But your answer was, if you have an up or down one.
I would put them down just for safety's sake. I wouldn't have them turned up, because you're pulling a knife out and somebody is reaching across the knife block for somebody to get cut. It's not going to hurt the edge. It's really no different from
Using a cutting board?
using a wood cutting board. Just running the edge across the cutting board. It's basically the same thing.
So another question from Kathy. I'm going to destroy your name. Kathy Pisarchik. She says, how do you pick out a good steak?
That's a good trick. Large.
No,
Large.
no, not for me. Give me a nice fillet.
You can ask your butcher about the different ratings of meat. Prime being the best. If you want a good steak, you try to pick a prime steak. Some places will actually dry age their steak, and what that does is it compact, for lack of a better term, it compacts the flavor in the steak. You want a steak that's got a fair amount of fat in it. Remember, fat is flavor. If you have no fat in it, it's not going to taste all that good. So what you're looking for is...
So it'll be more dry, obviously.
Yes.
If you don't have a lot.
You'll have depending on what steak you're picking out, you'll have a layer of fat around the outside of it, or if it's like a T-bone.
That's not what you're talking about.
It needs that too, but what I'm talking about is it's called marbling. If you look at the top of the steak, you'll see veins of fat running through it, and that's called marbling. And a lot of that makes the steak taste really good. If you look at a piece of Kobe beef, which is
They don't have a lot of marbling.
well, it depends on the Kobe beef.
Okay.
Some of it is almost white. It's got so much marbling in it. But yeah, that's the marbling is what really is going to make it taste good.
But so I look for something that has a decent amount of marbling, but not too thick, because if it's too thick, it's gristly, and then it's not very good.
Right. Yeah, the marbling. If you got a whole lot of marbling or a big streak of fat running through the steak, it's probably going to have a big streak of gristle running through it as well.
Yeah.
And when you get like if you pick out a filet mignon, they'll have them arranged real pretty in the grocery store on a tray. They'll be nice and round. When you're picking them out, have the guy behind the butcher counter pick them up and kind of open them up, if they will open up, because sometimes they'll take a fatty end piece that's got like fat in the middle of it and gristle and stuff, and they'll kind of wrap it around itself, so it looks real pretty and round from the outside, but when you get it home and you lay it out, it's like,
So you're not telling them to split it open, but if it's been arranged and can be loosened a little
Right.
bit, do you have them look at the bottom too?
yeah, look at the bottom. The bottom should look like the top.
And another question was how to make a pork chop. That was Carol Graham.
Oh, okay.
We have a little contention on this because I don't like it pink in my pork chop. I'll take a little bit of pink, but I was not raised with pink in my pork chop. And back then it was bad.
Yes, back in the day, when most of our parents brought home pork chops, we were told that they had to be absolutely white and dry as an old gym shoe on the inside.
That's not what they said, but absolutely no pink.
That's pretty much how they ended up, because of the prevalence of something called trichinosis. Trichinosis, for the most part, has been eradicated.
In the meat process?
In the meat process, yeah. It's the raising of hogs has changed considerably. Cooking pork chops is a lot like what we went through cooking steaks a few weeks back. It's the same basic idea. You want to season it however you like seasoning it. Just basic salt and pepper works, although
That's my favorite.
If there's something that you like, I like to put a little something extra that's maybe got a little sweet in it.
We found a brown sugar rub that you liked.
The brown sugar rub, I think it's by Schilling, and it's a kind of a general purpose rub.
Yeah.
And I've been using that on everything lately. But
It's
yeah,
good.
just cook it cook it. You need to brown it on one side, and then have your oven going at a good 425 broil, and turn your chop over in your pan, and take the whole pan and stick it in under the broiler for about 4 or 5 minutes. And if it's a little pink on the inside, that's okay.
Not too pink for me though. So Jock's Girl 1 asked about special meal. We're going to save that for next time.
Special meal?
A special meal that you make for me.
No.
So I have a good story for that. So that's it. So if you have questions about cooking or grilling or meats or chefing kinds of things, send them his way and we'll be happy to answer those. I thought I would share, since we are coming up on Easter, I think the nice thing about baking is obviously just finding a really good recipe. And this one was an easy one. I used to work forever in high school, and the home ec teacher gave this to me. And this is her ingredient list. So you can see that in some of the instructions. It looks backwards here, so hopefully you see it frontwards. I will try to put that information down in the description. But the bottom line is, you take refrigerator biscuits, a can of refrigerator biscuits, and you cut them into quarters. And then you take a 1/4 cup of white sugar and a 1/2 cup of brown sugar and a teaspoon of, is that right? Wait a minute, let me think. Not the brown sugar. So the cinnamon, you take a teaspoon of cinnamon and a 1/4 cup of sugar, and you mix it together in a baggie. And then you take I should just go ahead, and it's been a while since I've done this. So you take that and you put your cut up pieces of dough in there, and you shake it around so they get all covered. I usually take a nonstick pie pan and a little custard cup, and I butter the custard cup or grease it and stick that in the middle, and then I put all those pieces in that pie pan. And then you take the 1/4 cup of, I always use butter. I had an aunt that said, if you're gonna bake, you gotta use butter, don't use margarine. She would not give me her cookie recipes until I promised to do that. So a 1/4 cup of butter and a 1/2 cup of brown sugar, and you heat that on the stove till it's all mixed, and then you pour that over top, and then you stick that in the oven, and you bake it at 375. And I'll see how long it says for that, 20 to 25 minutes. So when it comes out, you can invert it on a plate and then pull it apart, add a little butter to it. When it's nice and hot, it is good.
And burn your fingers.
Really good, really, really good. I love that cinnamon sugar, brown sugar stuff in the morning. That's my thing. So that's just a quick thing for Easter. That's easy to make, and kids love to make it because you can do the baggy with the stuff. So I'm gonna go on and talk about stitching.
I'm gonna go make dinner.
Okay, so he's gonna make dinner, yay. I'll start with the stuff in process. So I didn't quite finish up my tall guys back stitching because I wanted a little break. So I continued to work on the camper. So here is where I've gotten to the camper, which makes me also remember I've got some things to pull for free. So David, you need to be my random number generator. We had a sign up for the spring pattern that was extra. I found that was a series, so I've got the rest of them on order. I have just the one that is the duplicate, so when I finish the others, I'll send it to whoever's the winner. So from 2 through 37, I need a random number.
29.
29. Cross Stitcher 2. Cross Stitcher 2. So if that's you, Cross Stitcher 2, and you signed up for the spring pattern, send me an email to PIQUEA, P as in Paul, IQUEA @gmail.com, and I will send that to you. And then we have the Aida fabric. So there's 2 of these, 2 sets of Aida that I'm going to be sending out. So 2 to 14, pick a number.
6.
Number 6 is Linda Craig. Linda Craig, and pick another one, 2 to 14. 13. Oh gosh, another tough name. Prudence Nizwicki. So Prudence Nizwicki. I'm assuming that's how you say your name, or Nizwicki? Wiki, I guess.
Killing it.
I'm destroying it. I'm so sorry. So you guys send me an email and I will send you off the Ada stuff. So that's great. Also kind of exciting. So one of the things that I worked on finishing was this Americana #1 piece. I'm waiting for the other ones. It's a 5-part series. And so that's what I did. And I got the button. It didn't come with a button. I don't know if I just didn't order it properly. So I had to buy the button. It was small. So that was really easy. But she said, I'm really excited about this, that I think her name is Nancy Waller. She is a designer and she's going to send us some stuff because I love it so much. I love Faithwurks. She does some really, really cute things with boxes, and she's got this very cute, I've ordered it, this little bunny box with, oh, it's just so adorable. She had a very cute Independence Day. I might have an extra one that I can give away when she brings that stuff in, but she's going to send us some stuff. So I'll be so excited to pass that on to you all. And thank you to Nancy of Faithwurks Design. Just adorable. They're so much fun. The other thing that I was working on was a Lizzie Kate. So it's coming up on Easter, so I feel like doing Easter stuff. So I started this last night and then realized I'm missing some thread. So I have 2 of the week's work dyed that I don't have. I can substitute with DMC on one of them that I do have, but I'm missing a 3rd one. So I don't know, that kind of went and got stalled. And so I have this one to move on to next with her. But I have the buttons and everything. It came with all of these. So the little button here, I'm going to do that one. I'll probably do the egg hunt and then the button here. So that's very cute, a lot of fun. And then this is the other one. It didn't have a button. Oh, it did have a button. I guess I missed the button on this one. This would have had a little button, but it's not in here. It's another Lizzie Kate. So Lizzie Kate, love Lizzie Kate. And then this one I worked on this last week. So I had 2 of these, and this I did one last year. Didn't finish it or anything. This is Satsuma Street. I love Satsuma Street. I love the bright colors. So this was quick and easy to do. So there's my Satsuma Street finish. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get Jan to, because I obviously did a very rookie mistake and didn't add, I added 2 inches, but not 2 inches to each side. Rookie, dumb mistake. So I think I'm going to have this made as like a 5x7 flat fold. So it looks like 2 pictures side by side, and I'm sure Jan can help me with that. So Jan, I'm going to be coming your way. And then the last thing that I worked on last week, always love the shepherd's bush stuff. So this was a shepherd's bush Easter egg, and there's my little shepherd's bush. I didn't put egg on there because I didn't care to do that. And I have these little shepherd bush ones in my bathroom, and I have never changed them out. I have the heart one, so I think I'm going to do that and have that out there for spring. So that was it for me. In terms of stash, though, I did get this off the Shepherd's Bush site. Interesting thing that came up, I have this posy basket, Tisket Tasket basket from Shepherd's Bush that I completed and had framed last year by my local LNS, and I posted that on the Shepherd's Bush site, and everybody started asking me if it was a Jill Renzel frame. Now, if you all are familiar with Shepherd's Bush and the frames that the mats they would sometimes put out, she does some incredible matting, and I think Barbara Hills at Keepsakes, my local LNS, is just as amazing with some of that stuff. And so she did that posy one. And so everybody started asking, is that a Jill Renzel mat? And of course it wasn't, and they wanted to know where. So I hope I didn't do a bad thing for Barbara, because I think people are gonna, I directed them to their Facebook page, and I think people are gonna start asking her. So good for her, she wants that business. Bad for me if it takes her away from doing stuff for us, but I just think she's phenomenal. So I think, was there anything else that I had on here? I think there was something else. Nope, I think that was it. So just want to say it's kind of fun with the community that's out there, and I can't thank you all enough for the positive comments and the encouragement, especially for this guy. He just is so blown away by all the love and wonderful comments that everybody has had. I think it's pretty cool that we've got people from other countries participating with us. I was excited that Verpi received her her giveaway last month, and so she's in the Netherlands. I think it was in the Netherlands. And we've got people watching from Denmark and Mexico and Portugal, and we've had people from Scotland, and it's so cool to have a community that interacts like that. I just love it. I know as I look at my stitching, and you know, I think it was Buckeye Stitcher who made a comment about wanting all of the stitches to be placed right, and I never thought I obsessed over stuff like that, but I think the more I see the way people you're laughing. The more I see the way people stitch, the more it makes me a better stitcher, and I start thinking, I think a lot about why I like to cross stitch. And you know, when I was a kid, I loved to do paint by numbers, and the way my brain works is I really like to think about the what and the why and the how. And so it's a challenge for me when I'm stitching to think about the efficient way to use the thread. I know this is probably silly for some of you, how to efficiently use the thread and get the most out of the thread. And I used to think a lot about what the backs look like. I find that I don't think that way so much anymore because I'm thinking about the angle of the thread as it comes up. So I found when I sew stitch, if I just sew stitch X, the crosses straight across or up and down, it gives a different slant that I don't like. So I found for me, actually, more recently, I'll cross stitch in one direction, then I'll go back. I played a lot with Thread Heaven and railroading stitches. That's where you take the thread and you put your needle in between the two threads when you're doing a double stitch as you go down. And I found for me that Thread Heaven only really helps me if I'm getting a lot of tangles or there's a lot of friction in my thread, or if I've had to rip thread out and it feels like it's getting a little fuzzy, then I'll use that Thread Heaven because that will make it a little stronger and easier, not be being caught with the tension and as it goes through the fabric, and so it makes that that thread last a little longer. But I've noticed when I just stitch just regularly with Thread Heaven, it's no different than when I stitch and I make sure my thread isn't tangled, and that as I'm looking at that bottom of the thread, that it's two pieces of thread that are straight and there's no twist. Sometimes sometimes it's a matter of giving yourself permission to do something because you don't think about it, but I find that using my thumb to make it go flat, if it's a little twist above that, will help. So I use my fingers a lot as I do that. If I pull it through and it's not quite straight, I'll use my nail to straighten it out as I pull it through. So, you know, I'm constantly looking at those stitches to be sure that they look okay and that they look straight and together. And I know people do it differently. You know, I had a friend who would up and down with two hands. I've never done that with two hands, but I thought that was pretty fascinating. But of course I don't use a hoop. I dumped the hoop early on because I didn't like the way it made my fabric stretch, and it left that hoop mark. And I found, I mean, just holding it, I had less of an issue than if I used a hoop. So I don't use a hoop. So anyway, I think it's interesting for you all to share the way you stitch and the way you found that it gives a good technique for you. I know people do up, down, left, right differently, and it doesn't really seem to matter as long as they're all the same direction, which was what I learned after my very first cross stitch when I didn't know that. So it's fun to find new techniques. So if you have techniques that work for you, I'd love to hear from that and share that. I think that's part of what makes this community great. Anyway, that's it for us. We may not see you before Easter, so if we don't, for those of you who celebrate, happy Easter, and we'll talk to you in about 2 weeks. Bye.